what's the one kind of most important thing health-wise that I can do to be better all round? And it is the easiest answer, and it's always sleep. Because if you sleep bad, you can eat the best food possible the next day. You're still not going to feel fully rested, recovered. You're not going to be able to absorb the nutrients of the food the best. Your brain's going to be scrambled. So sleep for me is really that foundational pillar. And the optimization of that is tips and tricks and things that you do to make sure that you get the best night's sleep.
Welcome to the Outlier Mindset podcast, your guide for living a life by design. Here, we explore the journey of becoming an outlier, finding your purpose, mastering your mindset, optimizing your health, achieving financial freedom, and building a life centered around your passions. So tune in, transform, and thrive. Welcome to the Outlier Mindset. Let the journey begin. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Outlier Mindset podcast. I'm your host, Robin Schley, and today we welcome to the show Liam Cole. Liam's a speaker, innovator, and a longevist who specializes in two areas that we're excited to talk to him about: building relationships and sleep hacking. Liam's approach to both is not only innovative, but will help you increase your business performance and your quality of life. Liam, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to have what I'm sure is going to be a fun and an insightful conversation.
Grateful indeed. I know that looking at your background and who you are and what you do, I'm pretty excited about today because there's a couple of things that I really want to talk about that are not just going to be valuable for my entrepreneurship community, but they're going to be really valuable for me too. And one of those things is talking about connections and such. Liam, tell me a little bit though, before we get into that, what is your background?
Yeah, sure. So my background actually is probably more of a sort of random journey than it was anything planned or thought out, which is why the connections part was such an important and meaningful area for me. I was left school, no real education. I was actually in school. I was one of those pupils that they struggled to teach. So I was kind of separated from the rest of the kids, not because I was naughty, but just purely because I wasn't able to really absorb the information to connect. So I was kind of separated from the other kids, taught separately in different classes and all that type of stuff, and actually sent away from school a couple of days a week on random things. So when I left school, I didn't have any qualifications. The only thing that I felt I was mildly good at was speaking to people and was communicating to people. So I immediately went into sales jobs, basically like door-to-door, double glazing sales, whole range of different roles in that field. I even started my own business selling effervescent energy tablets, basically Red Bull in one of those like effervescent tablets. I tried a whole host of things, and that sort of gently led me on this path of sort of growth and sales, because it was the role and the opportunity that gave me the chance to meet and speak with people as much as possible. And it was there that I found my greatest success, not necessarily because I was an incredible salesperson or anything like that. In fact, actually, it was the other side of things, more in terms of relationships and guiding people towards what they need, listening to them and supporting them as opposed to telling them what they should or shouldn't buy off me and how great my products were and all that type of stuff. It was a lot more consultative and relationship buildings. My role my time has always been within sales per se, but I don't know if that's really the best way to summarize it. That's why I like to refer to it as relationship building, and have moved through amazing companies like Amazon and quintessentially, who are the world leader in luxury concierge, and now part of the leadership team at Poppins. We're a fast growing, in fact, one of the fastest growing in the UK end-to-end agencies across brand, digital, technology, marketing, etc. But again, always with that front-facing piece, always around relationships.
I mean, it's funny you say that too, Liam, because I kind of feel like sales, there's two types of salesperson. There's a person who is truly a hardcore salesperson. I'm a closer. I'm going to get it done. I'm going to get to the finish line. But then there's the relationship builder. And for me, I've always told people I'm a lousy salesperson, but I'm a great relationship person. I'm really somebody who, when I get in with somebody who I like, or if I want to serve somebody, I'll go in and build that relationship first, knowing that sale or that relationship or the fruits that are going to come from that are going to come at a later time. And I got to be okay with that. But it sounds to me like you're kind of that way too. You're that relationship guy who says, you know what, I'm going to go in, I'm going to create the value, I'm going to create the relationship. Then, or maybe it's about helping other people also create those relationships. Being a great connector also serves you very, very well. Is that kind of the path that you've taken?
100%. And I think actually to that point, I realized I wasn't one of those very aggressive isn't the right word, but very sort of tenacious um, type of salespeople. I didn't really enjoy selling in that way, or at least communicating and speaking in that way. Similar to yourself, I much preferred building a relationship with someone, listening to them, understanding. And I actually think that those skills and that ability is far more valuable in today's world, taking nothing away from people that can do the other side of the coin, because I think it's an incredible skill, but purely because we're all more aware of those things now, right? Everyone's kind of been exposed to to that type of approach and everything else. But I think actually what people value more in a very busy and very cluttered and very chaotic world, and a very noisy one, is people that invest time in understanding who they are, what their interests are, and building relationships with them. So I firmly agree that that approach is one that can drive huge success. And I've always had people then say to me, well, you know, if I can't sell someone something, what can I offer them? That's why I always say that connections is an incredibly powerful thing. I didn't start with this phenomenal contact book of people and know all these different people from different industries. It was time, you know, it was just time meeting one person, another person, saying, oh, you know what, maybe I should put you in touch with this person or that person. Joining the dots very carefully and delicately has then slowly expanded and expanded and expanded. And to now where I has got to the point where if someone needs something, they come to me, and normally I can join the dots for them.
Yeah, you're a connector, and you probably resonate a lot better with people who are not that hardcore salesperson either. I know that for me, I can't stand when I sit in a room with somebody who is just a salesperson. I know they're driving me for a sale. I know they're driving me for a close, but that's it. And the other side of the coin, when I'm working with people who I trust and who do have their relationship with me, I resonate much higher with that type of a person. Is that kind of how you are also?
Yeah, big time. I was curious actually that when you were mentioning you kind of noticed it. Do you feel like you always register people that are that type of salesperson? You know, you can just feel it, or you can just sense it straight away.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's one of those things where you're sitting in a room and you know it. I mean, I can take them and put them in two buckets pretty easily. And for me, I want to do business with the people. I want to do business with the relationship people, with the people who's like, you know what? Not only because, hey, all of a sudden I like you. I love what you do. I like how you're trying to build a relationship. Now I feel like I can take my friend or somebody else that I work with that needs what you have, and I can also give them to you and feel good about it. I can feel safe and comfortable that it's not going to be about selling something they don't need, but it's going to be about getting them something that they really need to have in their lives.
Definitely. I agree. And I think as well, things like social media have probably brought wider awareness to it, because you have influencers and other individuals that you can tell very blatantly. I mean, they have to tag these posts right now, but you can tell very blatantly that they're trying to sell a product or service. So I just feel like everyone is very attuned to that way of selling. And there are many people that are still incredibly successful at it. But I do completely agree with you that the art of relationship building, and it's something I'm very passionate about talking with social media, with the boom of AI and all these other things. I actually believe very firmly that the art of relationship building is a dying art. We are losing the ability to communicate with people, to connect with people, to listen to people, and to ask questions. We're all afraid of asking questions because everyone wants to pretend they know everything. Oh, yep. You know, there's no shame in asking a question, because that question will lead you to another bit of information, which will lead you to something else, which will ultimately allow you to understand the person you're speaking to better and support and help them in whatever way they need. And it might not be directly the services that you're providing at that moment or time, but if you can support them and add value to them in another way, or build a relationship that can stand the test of time, you'll always be remembered. You'll always be thought of and go, you know what, actually, yeah, I'm going to give him a call because maybe he might be able to help with this one thing.
You know, too, I think, Liam, when you're talking about the AI and all these different things, how we're kind of losing the art of that relationship building. I think that creates opportunity for the people who really understand it, because the less people that know how to do it, the people who do really start to stand out. They're the ones who are going to really excel, get into a room and really understand how to communicate and excel in those situations, versus the people who are so caught up in that AI world or that quick sale or that one-time hit.
Yeah, 100%. I notice it with friends of mine run other businesses, and they have, younger teams, and for them, actually, it's a challenge to get those individuals to pick up the phone. They're very happy to communicate over email and other forms of communication. Again, this kind of goes back to that social media AI world where you can sort of automate these things and send emails and stuff. But actually, things like phone calls are kind of becoming a bit of a lost art. And a phone call isn't the only way of communicating with people, right? Being out at events and introducing and just saying hi and making conversation, these things are dwindling in my experience and in my opinion from the conversations and what I'm seeing with people. And I think that people that tap into that, very much like people that, the whole saying around, don't be afraid of AI taking your job, be afraid of the person who's an expert in AI taking your job. Those things are very true. Remove the AI from the scenario. You should definitely treasure and value people that have that art of communication, that just know how to build relationships and talk. And you don't have to be an expert in subjects to ask questions. It's the easiest thing in the world. And that's, for me, whenever I'm speaking to someone who's far more intelligent than I am in a certain subject, I just ask questions. I just ask questions about everyday normal life, and I get to understand who that person is, rather than trying to pretend like I'm an expert in their sector or their space, or that I am on a par with them, or that I'm trying to push some sort of fountain of knowledge I have in some area. I just ask very simple, ordinary, everyday questions, and that's how you get to really know people.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, we've got AI, we've got all these different sources where maybe it's taking some of these communication skills out of play. But at the same time, I believe that COVID had a big part to play in that too, where people started getting stuck in their houses. We weren't going to work. We weren't socializing, and I used to be a very social creature. I used to be out all the time, but I got just kind of into the habit of being at home. I got used to being at home. I got used to kind of thinking maybe I shouldn't go out to a place. And sometimes you have to break that cycle. I am still just breaking that cycle now. And then you put AI on top of that. And I kind of feel like it's this perfect storm of taking us out of this social culture that we used to be.
It's hard, isn't it? Because I completely agree with you. And it is comfortable to stay at home. It's comfortable to work at home. It's comfortable to stay at home and do your things. And, it's the sort of thing where you convince yourself that, but this is, I'm comfortable here and this is all okay and everything else like that. And it does take, like with all things that are growth related or challenging in some way, it does take you to take a step forward to change things, and that it's like people always talk to me about things like sleep and habits like that. You have to take the first step. It's not just going to happen to you. So if you do feel like you want to communicate or get to know people better, yes, by all means, you can start and watch YouTube videos and listen to amazing podcasts like Negotiate Anything and have conversations and listen to your podcast. All of these things are amazing, but the only way to really do it is to get out there and start having conversations.
Yeah. So how do you take those first steps? I mean, there's a lot of people, again, who are kind of in these habits now, but I know there's a step one, but how do you start overcoming that and start getting back out into the world and start really getting close to people again and start building these relationships? What are some of the things that I should be doing or that people who are listening to this podcast should be doing to really start stepping out again?
I think the first thing, like most things, is the acknowledgement. If you're saying you want to do it, that's a great thing. Like I said, listening and watching videos, I mean, that's probably more of if you're looking to enhance those skills. But if you're just a general person that wants to get out there and speak to more people and communicate to more people, my advice is always to pick something that you enjoy. For example, if you really enjoy going to the gym, find a class, because you're going to meet like-minded people and it's going to be that little bit easier. If you're very much into painting, go and do a painting class, because you're going to be around like-minded people. Find those little things that are of interest to you or that you enjoy. And the great thing is, at least for anyone that lives in a major city like London or New York or LA or all these places, there is a never-ending list of things that you can do. There's even sort of movie events and events on different talks and exhibitions and all this type of stuff. So my recommendation is to find one thing that you really enjoy and find something on it. It could be a class, it could be a workshop, it could be a get together. It doesn't matter what it is, but you're going to be most comfortable in an environment that you're passionate or interested about.
Yeah. So what kind of things then are you doing to connect people? So you're starting to get to know people. You go out, you get associated people, see what they're about, see who they are. Make sure there's somebody you'd want to probably bring into your network, right? And share with somebody. Because there are plenty of people you go, you know what, I think this is not somebody who I might introduce into my network or introduce to my colleagues or my friends. But how do you start going through that process to determine, number one, is this somebody who I even want in my network and that I want to refer into people? And then number two, how do I go about making those connections?
Yeah, really good point. Like, information is powerful. And the more that you know that the person you're speaking to, for example, if you and I were having a conversation, I would do my best to understand as much about you as I could in a short space of time, not in a Liam's got a list of questions and he's quizzing Rodman and you're sat there thinking, God, this is incredibly weird. He's just asking me questions in a very conversational, relaxing, enjoyable way, whether it be one-on-one, whether we be met at an event for the first time, maybe it's in a work situation, maybe you're someone that someone's introduced me to. I would spend the time understanding as much about you as I possibly could. That then, for me, over time, I built this sort of catalog in my head of people and things that would immediately tick. So you might say something, I'll think, you know what, I think I should introduce you to Susanna because maybe, and I'll dig a bit deeper, I'll ask some more questions. What I'll do then afterwards is, and I just keep everything on my phone, on my notes on my phone. So I'll go into there and I'll just add a load of bullet points, a load of interesting things. And then what I do is I'll sit down on a Sunday afternoon and I'll have a think. I'll mull it over. I'll think, is there anyone that I met recently that maybe I should introduce you or connect you to? Maybe you said something. Maybe you said to me, oh, I'm really, really, really looking to go to this event, and I'm struggling to get a ticket for that event. It'd be good to try and get there, or I want to take some clients. I would then think about who I know specifically that could help with that thing. And then I would look to join the dots in whatever way I felt was most comfortable, whether it be an email introduction. I might call you and say, hey, look, that thing you mentioned, I can take care of that for you. Normally what happens in the meeting or the time I'm with that person, I'll identify those things. And at the end of it, I'll say, I could probably help you with that. Do you mind if I maybe join the dots with someone, et cetera, et cetera? And then I just keep a track of everything on a very simple spreadsheet, who I've connected with who. Does create time. It is an investment in time and energy, and I probably take it to the nth degree. And you don't have to do that, but I think the more people that you speak to, the more questions you ask them, the more information you'll get to better then connect that person with someone of value or interest to them.
Now, I'd like to get your take on this too. It seems to me like one of the fundamentals that I've always believed in is that I will never lead with the ask. I'll always lead with the service. So I'll always lead with that. How can I help this person? How can I help them grow? How can I lift them up? Knowing that if I can put into a person, it's not always going to come back. And I don't give to people, I don't put into people for that reason to expect something to come back. But I'll never lead with an ask. I'll always make sure that I'm going in and I'll help somebody get to where they need to get to. And then they're always thinking about me when I have a need or I have a place that I'm trying to get to. Is that true
100%.
For you?
It's so powerful. And my mentality is exactly the same as yours. It's done because I believe anyway that there are a few things more enjoyable than joining the dots. I like to call it joining the dots because it just feels right. Like it's a very specific pinpoint thing that you're doing. And I think maybe back to being a kid where I remember I was thinking about like joining the dots and stuff. Like there's something cathartic or nice about it in that for me. And I feel like doing that is so enjoyable in itself that you don't need, to your point, you don't need to be searching for something else. You don't need to then, you're not looking to mesh with that person a week later and say, you know what, I made an intro for you. Are you going to introduce me to someone else? No, because the introduction in itself is enjoyable, is value. And it's one of those incredible things you get a real nice feeling and buzz from, especially when someone turns around and they go, Robin, you know what, that person you introduced me 6 months ago, we just did some amazing business together. Or do you know what that lady you introduced me to the other day, actually, I've become best friends with her husband and we play paddle all the time. Those things are amazing because connections are still the foundation of of who we are as humans, storytelling and connections. And I think that's really what it centers around.
Yeah. You're talking a little bit about, I'm going to go back a little bit in time here. You talked a little bit about being a kid, going through school and kind of getting separated out a little bit, the way maybe you learn. You used the word, I was not naughty, which, is kind of a lot of us get separated because we are that naughty kid or whatever it might be. But in terms of your journey there, it was kind of more of you weren't learning the way that the other kids were learning, basically.
Yeah, so I'm 35, so this is going back 22, 23 years ago, and also feels strange saying that as a 35-year-old. Feels like an incredibly long time ago. But I suffered at that time, less so now because I've worked on it very hard. But I suffered from pretty extreme dyslexia, and I think that it was that and a few other things that was quite crippling for me from an education perspective. I always felt incredibly uncomfortable when I was in any form of education. And there was probably only one teacher for a term that I had that I felt was any good or I connected with in any way of learning. So I always felt not good enough. Always felt not good enough. And that still sticks with me today very heavily. And it's probably also one of the reasons why I enjoy so much connecting people, because I'm doing something to support other people, and I'm sort of a part in supporting that and helping making it happen. So for me, during that period, it was the realization that, perhaps I need to find something that does excite me, something that I am good at. And actually, it doesn't need to be a specific career, right? It doesn't have to be that I want to be in the automotive industry or an astronaut or work at a factory or something like that. Why can't it just be people? And actually, by centering it on people, I've moved into different industries and sectors and done lots and lots of exciting different things. And I sit on the board for a couple of companies and advise them. So for me, people are always at the center of everything. And that means that there's nothing I can't really do as long as people are involved.
It's interesting to me. So many of the people, or a lot of people that I know that are very successful entrepreneurs, are dyslexic. I mean, they are somebody who's gone through those challenges. And I don't know if it's the dyslexia itself or more the fact that they are problem solvers. They are able to take what they went through when they were a child and when they were young, find their inner strength, because, outliers are typically separated from the crowd anyway. We're different, right? We're people who we may not think like other people. Really, we think differently, we act differently, we go differently. We're problem solvers. We've had a lot of adversity in life that we've overcome. And so that's why I asked the question. It's always very interesting to me that I meet so many successful people that got separated from that crowd early on for one reason or another. Maybe not a good thing at that time, but a blessing in the long term. If you really look back and go, I was able to get through this. I was able to be successful because of this. Like you said, maybe now I battle with it a little bit still, right?
Yeah.
Where you're still having those little things that are inside you maybe, but at the same time, I bet you that's where you find a lot of your strength.
And maybe, to your point, really interesting actually, because it made me think about it in a different way. Maybe it's also that adversity, and I'm careful about that word because I didn't have a hard upbringing in any way, shape, or form. I had an amazing family and an amazing life. It was just from an education perspective and not kind of fitting in that was the challenge for me, which is uncomfortable when you're a kid, because every kid wants to kind of fit in and I guess feel normal in that sense. But perhaps, and this would be an interesting thing to unpick, or maybe someone knows the answer, but perhaps those entrepreneurs that do have those type of challenges, perhaps it drives them to want to continue to improve, or to want to do more, or to want to learn, or to want to grow, because that's certainly how it's felt for me. And up until really the age of 25, I was always working really hard and growing and learning, but it was only really then that it sort of took off for me, once I'd sort of felt steady on my feet in some way, and then you drive off. But it's a really interesting point, and I wonder if that potentially is a driver for lots of those great entrepreneurs out there.
It certainly could be. And again, I think it's just that ability to solve the problem. For somebody like you sitting in class, trying to figure out, you going through those educational programs, really trying to read and the dyslexia, you had a problem to solve, right? How can I learn? I don't know. Everybody's got their things. And, the word adversity, of course, is used very generally. but it's a problem. We're solving problems. And so many people who are in those positions are. And the other thing is just kind of getting separated out from the crowd, right? Just being different and being okay with being different. Like sometimes maybe that still haunts people a little bit, as different as a kid growing up, I guess separated from the rest of the group and that, but the blessings are in there. The blessings in that I was separated and I was okay being different and I was able to solve the problems. And then you get into life and you're starting to be an entrepreneur and do all these different creative things. It's not that big. It's just not that big of a deal. I've got this.
Yeah, exactly. You've already faced some form of challenges in some way. There's one thing actually, as we were talking about relationship building and those things, one thing that I think is probably a really good thing to mention, and I might challenge some people in terms of their way of thinking, but I also feel that, and the way that I'm talking about it, I talk a lot about relationship building and contacts and connections. I don't use the word networking. Now, I understand why people use the word networking, but I do feel that it's become very transactional now. We have all been to more than enough events where we have our name tag on and we go and recite the same 3, 4, 5 things every single time. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is how successful I am. Not that you talk about wealth or anything like that, but you talk about your position, right? And those things. And then it's kind of right on to the next person. And these networking situations, I feel, have become very transactional because people are only interested, and people will stare sometimes at your name badge. Oh, okay. Oh, you're from there. And they'll look at who you are and how successful are you. And they'll judge you very quickly as to whether they should continue a conversation or not. But what I'm talking about is a genuine curiosity and excitement, passion to meet and understand new people. All of the best moments in my life are with people, right? Whether that's loved ones, friends, family, business interactions, all of those most interesting conversations and opportunities are from that. And a friend of mine said something incredibly brilliant the other day. He runs a really successful agency here in London, and he reframed it. He said, my goal isn't to get 100 new leads or 50 new leads this week. It's to make 20 new friends. And what he means by that is they're not going to be his best mates or whatever, but he's just going to go out there in terms of a business perspective and just build relationships, ask questions, share knowledge, make connections, and see what comes. And it's just such a fascinating way of re-looking at the way that you build relationships, certainly in a business perspective.
Yeah, no, I think that's an incredible way to look at it because, like you said, it's not transactional. And I can honestly say that a lot of my closest friends came out of those type of relationships where it's like we met for that first time somewhere and we just figured out that we had a lot in common, and then they did become maybe my best mate or my really good friend out of it. Not everybody is going to fit in that bucket, but there will be people that you're going to align with and that you're going to feel really good about that, are going to be somebody who's going to be in your life a lot. And I've got some of the most incredible people in my life just because I'm open to that. I'm open to the relationships, open to people, open to friends. And, if somebody pans out and they're a great friend, that's great. If not, and they're maybe not as close, but they're still a friend, somebody you trust, somebody you care about, somebody who you want to see do well. I think that's a beautiful way to look at opening yourself up to that relationship when you're out there instead of just going, hey, I'm going to go meet people so I can sell them this.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also that, and I'm sure you probably met many, many people like this, right? Senior people at, I don't know, Coca-Cola or Amazon or Nike or, all these amazing brands. And you can kind of think, well, they're the CMO of this brand. They're just people. They're just people at the end of the day with challenges, with struggles, often with, bigger issues and things that they need to solve because they have the pressure of an incredible job and potentially thousands of employees as well as a family life and maybe publicity as well, depending on how big their role is. So we always talk about it in the business that they're just people, and I think that whether it be in your personal or professional life, I firmly believe in approaching things the same way. Yes, of course, you need to be professional and you need to say certain things. You need to act a certain way from a business perspective on the professional level. But ultimately, in terms of how you talk and what you talk about, how you communicate, how you build relationships, it can still be exactly the same as you do in your personal life. We're all still very emotive beings, right? You can talk about logic and all this type of stuff, but people like to have nice conversations. They like to talk about what they're up to. They like to hear and understand stories. not just go straight into business talk.
Yeah, I agree. How do you go about sorting out? I mean, there's all these people out there, though. I mean, you're coming from a space of giving. I'm going to bring somebody in. I'm looking for this relationship. But there are all those types of people who are there for a different reason. They want to take as much as they can out of the relationship, or what can I get out of it? And that creates kind of an unhealthy balance too. Like, especially if you are somebody who's a real steep giver. So what do you do to kind of sort through those people, identify, okay, this person's not here to come from a spot of giving. They're just going to come in and take, versus that person who's authentic and that you want to bring into your network?
Yeah, that's an incredibly good question, and something that I've probably tussled with for quite a few years. Being a natural people pleaser, it is hard because you want to add value and please people. And actually, sometimes weirdly, the sort of the high school mentality comes in play, right? If you're helping someone and you're just adding value, and they're quite a well-positioned individual and everything, it's kind of like the cool kid in school. You know, you want to keep pandering to them in some way in the hope that something might come off. I always think with these things, feel first, think second. So if it feels wrong after a while, if you feel like, you know what, this isn't a relationship that I feel is quite right. And that doesn't mean that they have to be giving you stuff back. You know, you can add value to someone over the course of years and you can get nothing back from them. It doesn't necessarily have to be a two-way street from that perspective. But if it starts to feel like they are draining you or expecting more from you, or always wanting, or any of those types of things, if that feels wrong, it normally is. But take a second to think about it. That's why I always say feel first, think second. Your gut's normally always right. Normally, that's why the thinking part is just a support to go, do you know what? Yeah, actually, it's probably best that maybe I just walk away from this relationship, or you don't need to address those things unless you feel it's incredibly necessary. But that would be my advice, is just feel them out and then have a think. If it feels wrong, have a little bit of a think as to why it feels wrong. And if those two things stack up, then it probably is the right thing to move away.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I want to kind of shift over a little bit, because I know this is something we talked about earlier, and you had also mentioned sleep. And I've never heard of the term sleep hacking. I heard it from you. I'm very fascinated in that because, you know, being an entrepreneur, our brains are always moving. I mean, if people are like I am, and, you know, who knows, maybe people hit the bed and they can go out easily. But for me, I have a really hard time sleeping. For me, I have to get to the end of the day, try to shut my brain down the best that I can, hope to get that 8 hours of sleep, because I'm much better when I get 8 hours than when I get 6 or 5. What is sleep hacking?
Cool. Do you know what? Actually, I'd like to probably change the use of the word hacking, and maybe that was the wrong word of me to use. I'd rather call it optimization. I know that biohacking and all those things, the biohacking phrase is incredibly popular, and that longevity, you know, all of these things, and that industry is at its absolute peak right now. There's people like Brian Johnson, I'm sure you've probably heard about, you know, who's spending £2 million a year on enhancing his lifespan, and a whole host of other people that are doing similar things, achieving interesting results, and a whole host of things. I prefer the word optimization because it is that you're not necessarily, and certainly the things that I do for sleep, you're not necessarily hacking in maybe the conventional way of saying a hack to me is like taking something that's going to take you away from maybe normality or what's sort of possible within your system. Sleep optimization to me is quite simply delivering and supporting yourself to get the very best night's sleep possible. I have a lot of friends always, you know, ask me, or people I meet, you know, what's the one kind of most important thing health-wise that I can do to be better all round? And it is the easiest answer, and it's always sleep. Because if you sleep bad, you can eat the best food possible the next day. You're still not going to feel fully rested, recovered. You're not going to be able to absorb the nutrients of the food the best. Your brain's going to be scrambled. I mean, there's incredibly sad studies and insights that are now coming out around sleep and mental health and other illnesses as well. Obviously, its impact on things like heart disease, on diabetes, on obesity. So sleep for me is really that foundational pillar. And the optimization of that is tips and tricks and things that you do to make sure that you get the best night's sleep.
I'd love to hear some of those tips and tricks because I could use them a lot. I mean, I'm pretty good now. I've been working at it. I'm getting better. And maybe it's because I'm getting older. So now I go to bed a little bit easier at night. I don't know. But at the same time, for an entrepreneur who's sitting out there, knowing like where I have been over the years and such, it'd be really good to know some of these tips and tricks to get myself to that spot where I can start to get that really good sleep.
Definitely. And happy to share everything. And the good news is that there's nothing in here that's gonna cost anyone hundreds of dollars to implement or anything crazy like that. I don't have any mad expensive gadgets like a sleep aid bed device or anything like this. My kind of like, I guess, first real thing, I say two because it's two parts, is your morning routine and your evening routine. These things are pivotal to the quality of your sleep. Morning routine. So to run you through my morning, probably maybe the best way to do it. So I'll wake up at 6 o'clock. The first thing that I do, the very first thing, is I have a large pinch of Celtic grey salt. So it's salt grown here just off the Celtic Islands in the UK. Himalayan salt's also good. I would suggest you're better with something like a grey salt because that's one of the most minerally rich. Himalayan salt is also good. A pinch of that in a large sort of 500 mils worth of water, let it dissolve and drink that. What you're doing is you're remineralizing and hydrating your body at the same time with good quality salt. The next thing would be an oral routine. So what I make sure I do is maintain my oral health. Your oral health is directly linked to your brain health, but also your gut health. Your gut microbiome starts in your mouth. That's the beginning of your digestive tract. So things like, I use a water pressure to clean between my teeth, then a teeth pick. I use an organic toothpaste free of fluorides and other stuff like that. Then I do an oil pulling. So I'll take some coconut oil, which you can get done in from sort of toothpaste companies. They do oil pulling, and you swirl that around in your mouth for sort of 10-15 minutes. While that's happening, I'll immediately then go outside, even if it's an overcast day or not that good, to get sunlight. I'm sure you probably heard, but getting light exposure as soon as you can in the morning sets your circadian rhythm. So it sets that wake sleep cycle as effectively as possible. As I'm then finished with the oil pulling, I'll immediately move into a meditation piece. I use something called I'm not that good of a meditator, so I use something called a vagus nerve stimulator. I don't know. Have you ever heard of a vagus nerve stimulator? Okay, cool. They're brilliant. Basically, they are devices, and you can get a whole host of them. You can get ones that sit around your neck here. You can get others that sit on your earlobe. One that sits on your chest, which is like a little pebble device, which is the one that I use. And they vibrate and they massage your vagus nerve. So your vagus nerve runs from the back of your head right through your body, and then it divides, I believe, just around here, just below the chest, and then does two different things. Vagus nerve stimulators are directly can directly impact your mood, your mental clarity, your happiness, your relaxation, and it puts you in a very deep meditative state. So I put that on for about 15 minutes and listen to some music. I'll then immediately go and jump in a cold shower. All of this stuff, by the way, is within the sort of first half an hour, 35 minutes of my morning. So I'll immediately jump in a cold shower. I'm actually in the process of getting myself a nice cold plunge, and then I'll head to the gym. So that's the sort of first. So that up until going to the gym, that's the first sort of 45 minutes of my of my morning, and then I'll head to the gym and train most mornings really. When it gets into the evening routines, and maybe this is potentially where you're struggling a little bit with sleep, it takes some determination and discipline to move away from bright lights, your phone, all this type of stuff. So my wind down routine is similar, like so going through my oral routine, I'll then meditate. I have a little, you might be able to see it on my phone actually when I hold it up, but I have a little, when I triple click my phone, it goes red. So I have all those settings just to kind of reduce the light. This is around 8 p.m. in the evening that I start to do these things. And then I'll put on some blue blockers, but orange lens ones. So if I am sat watching TV with my other half, which I really enjoy, and there's nothing wrong with watching some TV in the evening, it's a nice way to relax. It will ensure that I'm not too overstimulated with bright lights or anything else like that. And then I'll aim to get into bed at around about 9:30, and I'll do a little bit of reading, and I'll be kind of fast asleep by 10 o'clock, and then I'm getting my 8 hours. I'm similar to you. I desperately need 8 hours. I don't drink any coffee. I don't take any stimulants. I don't do anything that kind of enhances my energy through the day. It is purely my sleep and my nutrition and my fitness, but my sleep being the cornerstone of good health.
And do you think doing your fitness in the morning kind of helps you not have that need to wind down? Like, I know a lot of people exercise, get a lot of adrenaline. Like when I play ice hockey. I'm not really good at it, but I play it. And, when I get back from a hockey game, say at 9:30 at night, boy, I could be up for three hours or so trying to just shut my body down. Do you think there's benefits to doing that workout in the morning so that you don't have those adrenaline rushes later in the day?
For me personally, yes, definitely. You're going to, if you're like you say, if you're doing a very intense, high adrenaline, also very fun, right? You're kind of getting even more endorphins flowing through your body. It's very hard for you then to start to wind down. Then you really need to throw in extra optimization, like for example, a warm shower, get the glasses on as quick as possible. Maybe you can take some very natural supplements from a relaxing perspective. I never really have taken anything on that side of things. Certainly I would always, if you can, try and stay away from sort of things that are more medically induced from a sleep perspective, because you'll always kind of be stuck in a bit of a cycle there. It is hard. I'm fortunate enough that I can take the time to train in the morning. People that have kids and other stuff, of course, there are challenges there, and people are night owls versus morning owls and all that type of stuff. But certainly training in the morning sets you up for the day ahead, and then isn't also going to impact your sleep in the evenings. Additional to that, for me, from a perfect sleep perspective, eating earlier as well. So I aim to eat 4 hours before I go to bed. That's when I have my last meal. And also when I'll drink my last glass of water, whatever it might be, purely because I don't want to be woken up in the night with the need of going to the toilet. And I also don't want my digestive system having to work extra hard to digest anything I've eaten to the day. So those are also little things that are going to take you another step forward towards having a good night's sleep.
Yeah. And to get a good night's sleep, I mean, just health-wise in general, the advances of AI, I feel like we're going to have longer and longer lifespans. We're going to have the opportunity anyway for longer and longer lifespans. The need to take care of ourselves at a greater, deeper level, I think is more than ever, because I think the studies that I've heard right now, they're expanding our lifespan 3 to 4 months for every year that we're alive right now. And AI is going to keep expanding and expanding and expanding on that. But if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not doing the things that we need to do physically or sleeping properly, we're setting ourselves up to fail long term, particularly with all these advances.
100%. And I think that when you probably ask most people there and you say, do you want to live to 100? Most people are probably quite fearful of that or won't want to, because their perception of living to 100 is being old or decrepit or, isolated from society and all of these things. But actually, there is so much exciting things happen in the health and longevity space that your ability to live into those years, but live healthy, vibrant, well, and happy are incredibly possible. And I'm not saying don't go out and have fun once in a while, right? Life is also there to live. You can go extreme with these things. I still have a drink once in a while, and I do this type of stuff. But I think that if you set those foundations in place, and they really are from sleep, nutrition, movement, and then for me through to treatment. So treatment is stuff like hot, cold, physiotherapy, things of that nature. To the point you made around the 3 months longer and everything, we are reaching this sort of escape velocity, which a lot of experts in the space talk about, which is for every year that you live, science is increasing your life by more than a year, which is amazing. And I think all these scientific things, and you read a lot about stem cells and stuff like that, these things are a little bit expensive right now, and they will definitely come down in price. But I think if people just focus on the basics, right? Good sleep, movement, and that doesn't have to be running marathons, just getting out, walking, mobility, being able to get up without using your hands, and then eating well, whole food diet, my diet very much Mediterranean, like a modified Mediterranean diet, I like to call it. I still have some meat, mainly it's all fish, but it's really an even split between sort of meat and veg, really. Like my meat intake has decreased a little bit, and I supplement protein more with like whey protein powders that are pea based and things like that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about kind of having that good balance. And like you said, I mean, if somebody's going to think about the real two big things, it's of course exercise and nutrition. I mean, if you want to lose weight, if you want to be get in better shape, those two things. There's a whole slew of other things that you can start to stack on, but those are the two building blocks for everything else. You've got to be, and I was talking to my wife about this on the way down. We're driving down from the mountains, and I was talking to her about this longevity, how it's changing and changing. And like you said, at some point they're projecting to go over a year for each year. And then all of a sudden you're kind of reversing that aging process. And her thing to me was, why in the hell would we want to live forever? And I told her, it's like, you know what, if I can spend as much time with my kids in this realm as possible. And if one of the biggest worries isn't so much my health, but maybe that accident, because that's the one thing you talk about where you're not going to be able to avoid. Maybe the health starts to reel backwards and you can start to really be healthier and younger and more vibrant. But it's that one thing, that accident, maybe that car accident, maybe that one thing that could take your life in an instant that you got to start worrying about.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I think the kids is a really lovely way to put it. Who wouldn't want to spend more time with their loved ones, but in good health, able-bodied, and sure, you can't live completely fully able-bodied for every single year, but when you're into your 80s and 90s, rather than to be struggling to move around or get about, to be mobile and active and switched on and all that stuff. And there are many people that are like that, but I think that there's still this societal thing that most people, and factually true, when they get to that age, they do slow down. But to your point, wouldn't it be great if you can remain healthy, live well, and enjoy your grandkids and play with them and mess around and have great grandkids and all this type of stuff? The live forever thing, right? Who knows? Let's see, right? And that's down to each person depending on what's available at that time. But I think just living healthier for a little bit longer doesn't sound like a bad thing to me.
Yeah, 100%. I think it just in terms of my own family, like we lost my mother, which would be my children's grandmother, right? And I think about all the opportunities that she's missed out, all that time, all that energy, seeing my kids grow up and such. And, to be able to have more time to experience those beautiful things. But like you said, but having a good, strong, able body where you can function and where you can still have a good quality of life.
Yeah. 100%. That's what it's all about, right? Quality of life. We all want to enjoy and spend time with loved ones and do the things we love as well. See the world, maybe travel, maybe it's more simple. Maybe you just want to have a nice little garden and tend to that. Maybe, you just want to spend time with family. Maybe you want to be a Warren Buffett and work, all your life and keep hustling, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation today, Liam. I think, number one, so informative, so many things that people can take away from the conversation and such. And number two, just, I like you, man. I think, you're somebody who thinks a lot like I do. I can see us connecting too and helping one another out on our journey. So this has been a great conversation, but I want other people to be able to connect with you also. So where do people need to go to find you and to connect with you?
Yeah, so best place is probably LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. If you search for Liam Cole, I should probably come up. Maybe the beard will be a bit of a giveaway. You'll probably notice me pretty quickly. If I don't, if you search for Liam Cole and then put Poppins or Poppins Agency in there, then you'll find me very quickly. And on Instagram, it's Liam Cole _. So welcome to reach out to me, to message me, to communicate however you want. Always happy to have good conversations.
Yeah, well, I've checked out all of your social media, and you're a cool cat, man. You've got some great content on there, some great information, and you just look good doing it. So that's always a bonus.
You're too kind. I'll take the compliment, but you're definitely too kind. And a huge thank you for you having me on. Really enjoyed the conversation. And like you say, I'm sure this is the start of many more good conversations and good things to come.
Yeah, for sure. And I got one more question for you before I let you go. And I ask this to everybody who comes on the show, but if you could go back into time and sit down with that young Liam, sit there with all this knowledge that you've got today, what would be the most valuable piece of advice you think you could give to your younger self right now?
Actually, quite easy for me. Ask more questions. I just ask questions, because there is no instance where asking more questions isn't a valuable thing, and you'll be amazed at what you can learn. Amazed at what you can learn. I said it earlier that I think that we don't ask enough questions. We all live in a society where we kind of want to pretend, we don't want to seem silly or like we don't know. And the more questions you ask, the more information you'll get, the more knowledge you'll get, the more interest and excitement. So that would be my number one advice to my younger self. Ask more questions.
Love it. Liam, thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciate you.